going to show you how to make a mold to go from this silicone to these resin parts. Keep watching. Welcome to the next video. In this video I'll be showing you guys how to make an open pour cast. Basically what that means, it's not two parts, it's an open sections that you basically pour straight into. So example is this mold. This is for the dune ornithopter. So as you can see, this sits on the table and you pour the resin directly into it, and then you level it out and it goes into the pressure pot. What you'll notice on this mold is there's a ridge around the edge. Okay, that's to prevent spillage in case you overfill. And then each pot actually has its own platform that it sits on. So once it's poured, you can actually sand that down to get the correct level for the model. Okay, and it's pretty easy to do. I'm not sure how many people do it this way, but I highly recommend it because of especially the spillage section where the edge. Okay, so when I do the box around it, I actually leave a 5mm gap around the edge. Okay, and what I do is I put the whole, to get this edge, I actually put the whole pot onto a piece of balsa wood. So balsa wood of different thicknesses. Okay, I generally use, I think it's a 4mm. Try and use the same thickness all the way through. So what I do then is I glue each piece onto the balsa wood and then glue the balsa wood onto the wood and then make the box. And you can use double-sided tape, okay, for each section. And you need to decide which ones you can use or what you actually want to make an open cast, because it depends on removal. That's the main thing. So these are easy to remove because it's a flat piece, flat at the bottom, so it comes straight out. Same with the rest of these. Couple of things over here is this has overhang, so when you actually pour the open mold, you need to push the syringe, because I use a syringe, into the edge to make sure it fills up with the resin. It also has a gap on the inside, and that's easy if it's going inward because the resin will flow around it, but when I make the mold I need to take care that the silicone actually flows into those holes. Okay, this one has an overhang as well, as you can see. So it's going to be this way around, and this will be the visible part to fill. So I need to know that I need to push a syringe into there and inject resin. Okay, same with these two. Okay, slight overhang. Okay, and when I remove, basically pull it out and pull it out of the gap, or the cave, so to say. I try to space it in such a way that it actually uses maximum or minimal space, but make it easy to remove. Okay, so I've come up with this configuration on these parts. This one printed with an open gap at the back, so I need to fill up the whole thing to close these holes, else silicone is going to flow in underneath. There's a couple of parts of this model. This is by the way the B-wing from Star Wars. A couple of parts were very high, like these engines. I'm not going to put them on the same mold, for the simple fact I'll be wasting all this silicone, a good 1 inch or 2.5 centimeters of silicone. So there's 6 parts that actually are high. This this is lower than this, but still over here I'll be wasting a good 2 centimeters of resin, of silicone. Same with this back end. Okay, so these can easily go onto their own mold. Okay, so I'll do a separate one the same way I'm doing this one for these, a smaller one. So what I'm now going to do is, I'm not going to bore you guys with how to stick double-sided tape, but try and get it to the shape of the actual part so they're all separated. Okay, you can do the 4 engines in one, or not these, you're not going to be doing these, but if you have 4 smaller sections that look the same, do them all in one. Okay. So basically stick them on and then cut it to the shape, about 2mm around the edge. So I'm going to come back once these are done before I stick them onto the wood to show you what I've done. Okay, all done. I've basically used different thicknesses of this double-sided tape. I have a wide one, very wide one, medium, and narrow. The narrow one's a lot thinner though. And then just cut where I needed to. So this one, cut to the shape. These I've made basically two separate pieces. But what you want to do is make sure there's enough gap in between each so you can remove them easier. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to stick these down onto the pieces of balsa wood, and then I'm going to stick the balsa wood down onto the surface. Okay, so I'll see you when that's done. Okay, all done. So I basically glued I made the square the right size. I measured it, and then put double-sided tape around the edge, and then inside just join the two parts together to make it so it doesn't collapse. It'll be like a bow. And then I glued that on, and then I packed everything once I cut it back onto the board, onto the wood. Okay, so the next step will be making the box around 5mm away from the edge of the wood, and then pouring the silicone. And so I'm going to come back once the silicone is done, and before I take it out before I take this out of the silicone, so you can see how the mold looks, and then that'll be done with the video. And then I'll do the next one on how to make another mold. I'll look at a more complex part possibly, but I'm going to do together with this, I'm going to do these engines, so it'll be two open pore molds together. Okay, I'm here in the garage, so I'm going to go over this mold that I discussed in the previous section. That's this open cast mold, or open pore mold. So what I've done is I've mounted the actual parts onto double-sided tape, and then I've mounted the whole lot onto a 5mm thick balsa wood. So what I'm going to do now is I'm using my heat gun. Okay, and then what I use for sides is I use this polycarbonate plastic. I have all different sizes, different models, different heights, etc. Okay, so I have a whole pile of them. And then what I'm going to do now is just use the heat gun and go roughly 5mm around the edge of this part, or of the actual base, the wood, and that will leave a ridge, or like a dam area where it will actually capture the resin if it overflows. Okay, so what I normally do over here is I'm just going to roughly judge 5mm around the edges. Let's clean this off slightly. Okay, over here. It doesn't have to be exactly, as long as it's around 5 to 8mm wide, and it basically forms a dam for the silicone to actually hold into. So there, just a little bit just to hold the part in, and with this hot glue it actually dries very quick, hardens. I reload it in my mouth, so normally I'll leave a piece in my mouth, so when it runs out, it's like a cigar. Okay, so yeah, 5 more. So this side is more than 5 more. This one. Reload. Okay. I'll come back to this one because this one's still open. I know a lot of people use wood for their sides, plywood or other materials. I like to use plastic, polycarbonate plastic. And the main reason I can actually see through it when I pour the silicone. You can see what's happening inside the mold, or inside the pouring surface. Okay, now this one is the last piece that's So I'm going to splice onto the end of this video. I'm going to splice the when the mold is actually poured. I'm not going to show how I mix silicone. There's a lot of videos on YouTube showing how to mix silicone. There's so many different types of silicones. I use Mould Max and Amsel silicone. I'm not sure. I think Amsel is a European brand. Mould Max American. They're good. The Mould Max is, you get different. The Amsel you get different hard, thick or short strengths. Same with the Amsel. Amsel's a bit cheaper. So ultimately they're all the same thing. I'm just testing my strengths. Okay, what I found sometimes on a bigger mold where there's a large mass of silicone, I just strap tape from the side to the side, so it doesn't. I've had it happen before where it splits open. Then I lose all the silicone and I cry because of the cost. Okay, so that's pretty easy. Okay, so next I'm going to mix and pour silicone into this and a couple of other molds, and then when I open this and take it off, I'll explain the process. Okay, here we have the open pour mold, completed. It's hardened. The what do you call it, silicone. This was expired silicone, so there's little small bubbles on top, so I'm hoping there's no bubbles stuck inside, otherwise I'm going to have to redo the whole mold. So let's hold thumbs for that. So what I'm going to do now, it's bonded around the edge. The rest has got wood, but also on the parts as well. I'm just going to pull it off the best I can from all sides. There you go. Okay. So here we have the wooden, or the balsa wood. As we break off the edge seal. I just spray mold release onto the other side of the onto the wood. What you can do now as well is use a ruler. Come in and separate it. You can try to save your wood. I do, but it's not always possible. It's actually coming out this way quite well. Here we go. Try not to tear your silicone, because some of these have underhangs on them. So let's go this side here first, where it's straight up parts. There we go. Okay, so here's underhang. He's out. This side, there's some underhangs. Doing a good bend also helps. Okay, it pops off. Okay, there's underhangs on this one. Out he comes, out he comes. The underhangs, as I mentioned before, silicone is going to flow over it, so when you fill it you need to make sure that the gaps are filled. Okay, here's the last piece. Okay, it just looks nice. Okay, so as you can see over here, it's now got a reservoir, okay, and then a smaller reservoir, so if there's been no wastage or overflow. Okay, so what I still need to do on this one, which I haven't done, which I'm doing on my normal molds, all the other molds, I just zap the edges off, just to make it nice and neat and make it sit level. So don't cut yourself with a scalpel. It's very unpleasant. Okay. There we go. So now I'm just going to, off camera, I'm just going to neaten. I'm going to do these edges and the inside over here, and that's the mold complete, open pour mold. Okay, I'll be cutting a piece of wood for this that it'll sit on. So when you put it into a pot, it doesn't do this, and then you have warped parts. Okay, so that's it.